Hi, long time no see. It has been a good year and a half since I uploaded a video on here.
Yay.
What comes with making major life changes that involve me searching up YouTube videos about other people making those major life changes is after I make those major life changes, me choosing to make a YouTube video to explain it to other people. And this major life change is the fact that I transferred colleges. Woo! I am currently a second year at the University of Toronto, but it is my first year at the University of Toronto. I spent my official first year as a freshman at a small liberal arts school in the States, quickly figured out that was not for me, and decided that I was gonna go off and just kind of like do my own thing, and just kind of decided that I was gonna go in the exact opposite direction of what I'd gone in prior to this, and apply to really big, large schools. And that's exactly what I did. I'm here to make a YouTube video about that now. I have a little like run through of what I'm going to talk about and stuff. I know that there are a lot of videos about transferring, and a lot of them happen to be from people who went to small liberal arts schools and then didn't like it and then ended up transferring to bigger schools. That's kind of going to echo that. I want to be able to aid and assist people in any way I possibly can if anyone out there ends up having to make a very similar decision to what I had to do. So that's fine. So I'm going to start out really with just background on my first round of applications and my first round of like applying to college my senior year of high school. So in my senior year, I had only applied to small liberal arts schools. I think I'd only applied to 2 schools, at maybe 3, but really 2 that like didn't really count as that, and I didn't get into either of them. But other than that, I solely applied to small liberal arts. I think this was a major mistake. And listen, I will be the first person to say, and I will probably mention this multiple times in the video, I think liberal arts makes sense for a lot of people. But for some people, a couple of the reasons why I chose to go that route really I think are all regarding what I thought I could and couldn't do, and a lot of that I think was unfortunately driven by my anxiety. I, oddly enough, grew up in a suburb just outside of a large city in the US, literally 20 minutes from the downtown area. I spent a lot of my childhood there. I went to classes there my senior year. I was set on going somewhere that was totally not like that. I very quickly learned that that was a big mistake. And I realized in retrospect that applying to a wider variety of schools probably would have been better. Listening to my anxiety that was telling me to go away from places I feared would actually be worse in the long run. I ended up choosing my first school, which I will not be using the name of, although on my prior video, it's probably not hard to guess where I went because I think I'm literally wearing the sweatshirt in the video. But I don't want to get in trouble because a lot of the things I mentioned about that school are probably not going to be super nice. But again, I ended up at U of T, so that's where I am now. I'm going to mainly go over like why I chose to transfer, that physical process, and how I'm liking it so far. So now into my actual transition into my first year of school. It was really rough. I did decide to go somewhere that was about an 8-hour drive from home. I did not have a car because they did not allow first years to have cars, which is relatively standard, I would say. And it was just not for me. Within, I think, the first 5 days, I had known that that school was not for me. And if you are someone sitting in your dorm room right now, just after school started, and it's been like a week and you are watching this video, there's a very good chance that you are not at the school for you. And listen, every circumstance is different. I totally understand that. A lot of it could be anxiety, but I spent a full year at that school. I don't know if I regret it, but there were a lot of things I disliked about that year. The only thing I really reflect back on that I liked were a lot of the people I met. Literally, other than that, there is not much that memorable about my first year. So again, within a couple of days, I really knew I wanted to transfer. At the time, I actually had an offer from another liberal arts school in the state where I was from, and they kept their offer open for me. I am glad I didn't take it because I don't think I would have ended up at quite a good school compared to the one I'm at now. That being said, that was kind of like my fallback. I knew after first semester that I did not want to remain there. I was actually hoping to be able to transfer out second semester, but again, with the other school, their offer oddly like fell through in a weird way. So I was unable to transfer after my first semester, which actually kind of ended up being a really good thing, because then I applied to a lot of big schools. December 2022, January 2023, I had submitted multiple transfer applications to bigger schools. I applied obviously to U of T, Purdue, Wisconsin. I'm honestly forgetting if I even applied anywhere else. Handful of really big schools. I got in basically everywhere. Wisconsin said I never finished my application, but I do have proof that I did, so maybe they forgot about me, I don't know, but they didn't deny me, they just said that my application wasn't complete. I had applied to all those schools. I knew that the liberal arts model was not what I wanted to do. I knew it was not great for me. And yeah, basically the things about my first school that I really didn't like was generally student life. I felt the student life was lacking there. It was a small town in the middle of nowhere. They really didn't offer great student life. The food was atrocious. It was so bad, and mandatory meal plan. Housing wasn't great, and that was also mandatory. They really didn't have on-campus activities, which sucks when you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a car. So it was like most of my weekends I actually spent in my dorm just by myself, and it was a very isolating experience, and it was a very not great time for me mentally because of that. Next was the price. I am paying basically the same that I was paying to go to U of T. That includes housing, food, tuition, that I was paying at my last school. So there was really no logical reason pricing wise why I should have stayed there. U of T made way more sense, and that includes reputation. My last school's reputation was good for certain areas, but it was not internationally known very well, unlike the school I'm at now. So obviously that was something that you have to look at, is the, logical reasoning behind why am I here, what am I paying, reputation, which is inherently very important. And then obviously it was far away from home, which at the time I thought was really going to be a good thing for me. It ended up being a really bad thing for me. I hated being far away from home. I miss my family so much, and I realized how much I actually use them as a support system. Moving far away from home was not for me. I'm not saying it's not for everyone. Some people thrive being far away from home. I just didn't. I'm still 4 hours away from home and technically in another country. It's not as bad. It was just kind of like the reasoning behind why I was there, the makeup of the actual school, again, like student life, food, housing, everything else. Everything outside of academics was really not great for me, and I didn't enjoy it, and I knew that that was such a major part of the college experience that I was missing out on, and I knew I needed to transfer, and that my first school was not the right choice for me. So going into the transfer process, as I mentioned, I had started really applying to schools in December of 2022 and January of 2023, really only big schools. I basically got into all of them. Honestly, the applications were not hard. The one thing I will say is a downside is if you are in the States and you're using the Common App does really not work for transfer. You usually have to go directly onto their website and find their transfer application and go through their portal in order to apply. So you're like refilling out applications multiple times. It's really not that big of a deal because so many of the essays are similar, so many of the questions are similar. It takes maybe an hour for each. And at the end of the day, it is worth it. The actual transfer process and the applying process was not that bad. Flash forward to late March of this year, 2023. It was when I was getting acceptances. I honestly did not think I was going to get accepted into Toronto. I kind of knew Purdue and Wisconsin were probably targets. Toronto I thought was a reach, and I managed to get in. And as soon as I got it, I texted my dad and he was like, that's kind of unbelievable. And then from that point on, I kind of knew internally that as difficult of a decision as it was going to be to transfer away from somewhere that I had started a life and that I was so familiar with, Toronto was the most logical option for me, and it made the most sense. So at the end of April of this year, I had submitted my acceptance to my letter as well as my admissions deposit, and as soon as I got that, I had begun the process of actually sending in all my transfer information. Now, one of the things I will say, depending on where you're coming from, is actually submitting my information for transfer credits and different stuff like that was very different at a large school. I was very used to having just like email sent to me by people, which is, I guess, a positive about a small school, is they really do handhold you, versus Toronto where like they do have a website for it, but like you follow the checklist on your own. Like no one's coming and checking up on you. which is generally how a lot of big schools work. So that was a little bit of an adjustment for me, but I got everything in, got my transfer credit, got all that set. It honestly was not that difficult. There was not that much to do. You just have to ensure really that you get your credits in, that you keep your grades up, that you get your transcript into them as soon as you do, so that they can uphold their end of your admissions requirements as soon as you send in that you've completed them and that they are accurate to what the school had wanted from you. So yeah, that was basically it. And again, the reason why I chose U of T is it made the most logical sense. It was basically the same price of the last school I was going to, better reputation, especially for my majors and what I'm going into, closer to home, big city. It was basically exactly what I felt my last school wasn't for the same price. So it just made a lot of logical sense to come here. Other than that, I think the physical process of actually transferring is really not that difficult. A lot of it is just submitting proper paperwork on time. And again, a lot of big schools, even if they don't have someone actively emailing you and like holding your hand through the process, there are like online websites that you can use, and they have different pages on their websites to really aid transfer students. So it's like not that difficult. Just make sure you're assertive and on top of things, and honestly your transfer process should be like totally fine. It was pretty easy. There were a lot of adjustments, such as finding like housing, because I'm on off-campus housing for my first year here, because they only guarantee on campus for first years, and I came in as a second year. A huge part of transferring, especially to bigger schools, is realizing that you have to mature pretty quickly, and you have to start really being assertive, and you have to start really doing stuff on your own, which is inevitably a part of growing up, and it's inevitably a part of going off to college, and something that a lot of small schools don't necessarily provide. They are there to handhold, which again, for some people makes a lot of sense. For me, it really didn't make much sense. That was just kind of like a big adjustment for me that I think it can be for a lot of people, but it's not something I necessarily regret doing. Now, kind of reflecting on my time here and what it's meant for me to actually like be here. Basically, so far, I love it. It really is making me just so happy to be here. I have amazing roommates. I'm in a sorority. I've made a lot of friends. I feel like this was an amazing decision that I made, and I knew it was going to push me really far, and it was very scary. And my summer, I was just filled with anxiety about the what ifs and what ifs and what ifs of what was going to happen here, and it all ended up okay. And that's something that I always like to tell people, especially when you're making big decisions like this, is at the end of the day, everything's going to end up being okay. Like, everything will, trust me. I would say transferring is possibly one of the best decisions I've ever made. It was a real necessity that I had to make, but it was one that I don't regret in any way, shape, or form, at least yet. And, you know, I love the academics here. I love, quite frankly, being in lectures. I love the independence. I love the city. I love that I'm able to choose my food. I love my apartment. There is just so much that I feel like I lost in my first year now that I'm here, that I feel like I'm now like living through, like even socially, parties and stuff, and going to different things, and like just having a normal college experience that I did not get. And that was at least a very important core part of my college experience to me, was like having that more stereotypical traditional college experience that I wasn't getting in my last school, but that I've been getting here. I would say like my biggest piece of advice is, if you are one of those people who has been thinking about transferring for a couple days, for a couple weeks, for a couple months, and you're a little hesitant about it, the worst thing that you can do is send in the applications, and the worst thing that can happen is a school says no to you. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, it's up to you, it's your decision, and that's something really important to remember. I would say don't be afraid to transfer. Moving schools and moving around is a pivotal part of life that you will probably inevitably have to do at one point or another. Why not do it when you're young? Why not do it when you can make mistakes? Why not do it in college when you are learning, and when college is both a mixture of learning academically, learning for your specialty or major, and learning about life in general. And I just feel like transferring was such a good decision for me. I hope it's, if you're in that position right now, you know, find your happiness, whether it's staying at your school or transferring, but don't be afraid of the transfer process. It's not that difficult. You just follow the guidelines, you follow the outlines. Schools are usually really good about having checklists on their website for stuff, sending you emails if you haven't completed stuff. It is a daunting process, but it is one that I think pays off in the end if you don't think you are where you exactly need to be right now, and that's totally fine. It happens to a lot of us. Sometimes we get off on the wrong track, the wrong foot, and sometimes we just need to readjust and make new decisions. And again, that is such a pivotal point of life. I hope that this video can help and aid anyone out there that needs it. I'm hoping that this was helpful. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the comments. I would be happy to answer. I am just really happy to share my own transfer experience, what it was like at my last school, going through it, what it's like here, and, you know, I feel like how much happier I am and how much more confident and how much I've grown as a person. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I really hope that this helps some of you. Thanks again, and good luck if you're in college or you're thinking about transferring or just with anything. everything. Just like good luck. College is a lot. It's a lot to deal with, but it's such an important and wonderful time of growth.